An approval to send 2 draft Belfair Sewer plans to the State Auditor's Office for review. Frank's not here, so what this is, and to answer your question, we've done a lot of homework and a lot of work in trying to take care of some of the issues that we have that has created a finding with the Auditor's Office. And what's before us today is not the adoption of a plan, but just the pushing forward of 2 plans. One that is based on all the work that we've done through the committees and the like, but the other one is the same plan with the addition of $1.5 million that may come into the county from the efforts of Commissioner Sheldon and Olympia. With that being said, I want to clarify and add that if you looked at this before, the paperwork you have in front of you today is a little bit different. There is an inclusion of a line that says incentives excludes Phase 1 properties currently required but not hooked up. So if you are currently required and not hooked up, you are excluded from any benefit that could be received. But again, we're not pushing through the plan. That's just in this at the time for what's being sent to the auditor to have her do the calculations and see if it's even workable. Because the truth of the matter is, regardless of all this, if the auditor thinks it's not workable and it doesn't pay out, we have to figure something else out. With that being said, is there any testimony or?
Well, Mr. Chairman, is there still time for questions?
Sure. If you want to, yeah, go ahead.
Question. So I was in yesterday, and I have a copy of a plan here, Mason County Board of County Commissioners. It's dated April 21. So I don't have a copy of the second plan. Has that been distributed to the public?
The second plan.
So, Mr. Chair, I think that perhaps the proposed motion on the approval for item 8.7, it refers to 2 draft plans because we had asked for a second plan to be developed in anticipation of potentially receiving these capital funds money. I think that when we move this motion, we should probably amend it to just say the plan, because that has been, Commissioner Sheldon, that has been actually incorporated as an option in the existing plan. If you look at the last page before the conclusion.
Okay, I'm looking at the last page.
The right before the conclusion, the paragraph before that refers to the other option should we receive the capital budget monies.
Yes, okay, let's see, what paragraph, the last paragraph under conclusion.
No, before, I can read it to you, Commissioner. If the Washington State Legislature budget includes.
I see it, okay. Okay, now, a couple things about this. By including this, you say reducing debt service, and this is what the appropriation is for rate relief. And then quoting from the plan here, it says, or use it to supplement cash flows needed for the construction of Phase 2 if allowed by the legislature. I don't think that should be included because that's not the intent of the appropriation. The intent of the appropriation is for debt service relief for expenditures that have already been made.
So would you like that line stricken?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
I think it should be.
Okay. Okay, and we'll handle that as a motion here in a moment, if you don't mind. And we'll go through any other questions on this first before we go to that one?
Yes, the second question. You just mentioned to the public that there is an option for hookups that is different than this plan.
No, what I read was, and you may not have it in front of you, I know it was sent to you.
Yeah, he's got it.
Oh, no, the only thing that I mentioned was if you had looked at the plan before, having the new one, there is an inclusion of another line that was not in the other plans, or the other papers that were being considered. And the line reads, incentives excludes Phase 1 properties currently required but not hooked up, such as mine. Otherwise, those properties are not eligible for any of that reduction if this was to even pass. Remember, this is not passed. None of this is passed. Any of the things we're talking about is just whether or not to send this off to the auditor for her review and to see if that she finds it to work within the parameters she needs in order to perhaps release us from a finding if we put it into action. Because it still would take a lot more to put anything into action. We have to change a code. We have to do it could be several months.
Okay, so where do I see that in this plan that I have in front of me? Is that included?
If you have the same paper, it'll be under, what page is that?
It would be the second page of the actual narrative.
Under principal tenets of the plan.
Middle of the page, second bullet, last sentence.
Just a second. So this would be on the third page.
Yes, technically the third page, because the first one, the
Principal
picture.
tenants.
Yes.
I see. Incentive excludes phase one properties currently required but not hooked up. That's okay? That's where it is. So, my understanding, there's 4 properties that are not hooked up.
I think so.
Does this exclusion apply to all 4 properties or just your property?
All 4 properties.
All 4 properties. Well, that's pretty unusual to have this in there, I think. But
Well, again, this is not the plan. This is just part of the formula we're sending forward. There'll be more discussion when the time comes, I guess, for any structured actual plan and going into codes. And this does none of that. This is just the plan, the financial plan to send forward to see if the numbers would match from the auditor to release us from our findings.
my take on this is that, Mr. Chairman, you could not vote on this plan unless this exclusion is in it. Is that correct?
Okay. Let's say you're right. I don't know that for a fact. No, but it is in there right now. So
So the Netherland exclusion here is included so that you can vote on this plan.
well, first of all, we're not voting on a plan, Commissioner. We're voting to move something forward.
Voting to send a plan, right? You're voting to send.
Yeah,
a
we're
plan.
voting to
But
send
this
the plan.
exclusion would be necessary in order for you to vote on this plan if it was before the commission.
Yeah, I don't know that. Remember, we had those discussions before, and it would have to be a specific benefit only to me, not to the region and all of them. But either way, it doesn't matter. This doesn't change any of that.
Thank you.
Okay? Is there any other questions in regards to the plan? Or sending it forward to the auditor, excuse me. Yes?
Is that the plan covers phase 2, 3, and 4,
And phase one, it still covers everything.
okay? My question being predicated on that, does phase 2, 3, and 4 have to be 100% sold out or hooked up to make everything work?
Well, there's a lot of properties there that don't even have houses or anything on it. I know that the overall plan is the idea that they will all be hooked up within 10 years. But again, this is only the structure of it. Anything like that would be a code change, and it's a whole separate meeting. It takes a lot more to change the law than it does to create a financial plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have another one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If no one I can't see if anyone in the public has a question, let them go ahead, but I have another
No,
one.
go ahead.
Okay, the third page, I guess it is, they're not numbered, but the interfund bond terms down at the bottom will be, and then there's some principal, which I assume that's the AL principal, interest, and then term. How is this bond going to be repaid? Where's the repayment?
The repayment would be done through the monies that we have in the system, the monies coming in from customers and the like, and hookups and the like, and would include interest only for 5 years on one and 10 years on another. But again, this is just pushing, we're just agreeing whether to send forward the plan. To actually do an interfund bond is going to take a lot more effort, and it still has to be structured and created. It has not been structured or created. We're putting forward a plan for the auditor to review.
Well, but if I was sending a plan, and I'm very reluctant to vote on sending this plan to the auditor, it does not even have a bullet or a mention of repayment.
Yes, it does, sir. Underneath, when you look at the back page and the actual structure, it does show the payments going back to the county and how that is structured.
Where's that, on what page?
On the spreadsheet,
All right, well, I wasn't given a spreadsheet yesterday, but I'll take your word for it. So you have repayment in there,
oh, absolutely.
in the 4-page plan.
Yeah, and it was in the original sewer plans that you had as well, and it shows right now a few differences when it comes to the repayment of it. Let me see if I can find it. For example, under additional loan costs, it'd be interest only, so you're looking at $20,430 for like 5 years, and then we would readjust and look at the rates, and we're going for the higher case scenario, so then the payments would increase to $44,000 at that point, and then there'd be a balloon payment of $1,362,000 at the 10 or 11 year mark. The same thing goes with a boss payout, $16,500 for 5 years with a $1,100,000 or $100,000 balloon payment at the end.
Okay, the county hookup program, right? The plan here says that will be repaid at 85%. Is that what we're getting now?
Yes.
And the 15% of the people that receive that assistance are not repaying?
Well, right now, he just has the 85% is the amount that is being paid back, so that would mean there's some deficiency, some late payments, some. Frank has joined us now. Would you like to address that, Frank?
Frank Fisher, Budget Manager. The current delinquency rate is about 85%, so the plan takes that into consideration. In prior discussions, there have been conversation in regards to implementing a program that addresses those delinquencies and puts into code what those options might be. At the moment, the only program we have available is to put a lien against the property.
I'm sorry, Frank, I missed that. The delinquency rate right now is what percent?
The delinquency is about 15%.
Okay, thank you.
So, and that's what the plan assumes will be paid through the term of the plan. But with code changes and the opportunities to pursue delinquencies through follow-up collection processes, that would take a code change, and that would require, and that would allow for a higher recovery rate.
And that would be we have to, that goes to the planning commission, 2 weeks notice, say, for, just like the same thing for any code adjustment. Right now, though, again, it's just in the plan for what's currently happening.
And Commissioner Sheldon, just to address your prior question in regards to the prepayments, under the options section on page 4, the indented section, there is a prepayment of the internal fund bond in 2020 and then the balance in 2026.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah, so it's identified in the text
both.
as well as on the spreadsheet as a function of the plan model.
Thank you, Frank.
As an option.
As an option, exactly.
Yeah, because if the money doesn't come, then
What happens if you don't have the money?
then the other plan is already structured to take all that into account. That option is what could occur that would make the plan even better if you're able to pull that off.
Okay, well, it's, I'll reserve a comment there, thank you.
Okay. Is there, yes,
One last question. You're going to present the plan to this April Taylor, the auditor, is that correct? Okay, if Mr. Kelly happens to come back,
It has-
he's in the wind right now for the state auditor. Could he have his prerogative to shoot it down?
I doubt that Mr. Kelly had ever seen any of our plans. He is not, that is not his job. So I can't tell you for sure what Mr. Kelly would do if he came back or if he did not come back. But the chance that he actually has ever seen any of our plans would be a surprise.
Has Mr. Sontag seen any of them?
Well, no,
Why
again,
don't you send it to him?
yeah, everybody, all the state agency, all of us are audited. It's a constant thing for every entity, every governmental entity. Are there any other questions? Tom?
For the public record, Frank, could you just give a very broad overview on what the plan is in terms of the internal bond and where the monies are going to come from, because so the public hears it right out of
Mhm. The overall plan is to utilize an internal fund bond, which is to take funding that the county has invested in the state pool and put it, purchase the bond and put the proceeds into the Belfair Sewer. Using those proceeds, we're going to go to the Department of Ecology to ask for grants and or forgivable loans in order to be able to acquire somewhere in a range of about $10,500,000 worth of funding to do the construction of the extension trunk lines for phases 2, 3, and 4. Phase 2 immediately, phase 3 and 4 as timing and or necessity and expansion needs dictate. Using those funds then allow the 10-year period for the customers to then hook up to that sewer trunk line that will be expanded to their property lines. Using a incentive program to reduce the CFC rate to $5,000 from the $10,200 currently, to incentivize them to hook up earlier than later, and get the additional 400 expected ERUs into the Belfair Sewer program. The financial feasibility of the debt service repayment out of Belfair Sewer requires a broader base of customers, or an expansion of the base of customers that currently the Belfair Sewer doesn't have.
And where will the repayment money come from?
From the CSE charges, from the monthly ERU charges, and those revenues will then generate enough funding for the loan payments as well as to maintain a positive cash balance in the Belfair Sewer individual fund.
In addition to the 09 and the refunds?
That would need to be maintained as a funding source.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, the 09 is projected to be roughly 425,000, and the REIT 2 is 150,000. And both of those are projected to feasibly be able to sustain that kind of funding into Belfair. So the projections show that there should be enough funds in those accounts to be able to support that.
Are there any other questions? Bob?
Yeah, my question is for Tim Sheldon. I'd just like to know why you're pushing back so hard on any kind of a plan to stabilize the Belfair sewer system. In my opinion, time is of the essence. I know there is development waiting to happen once we get a plan in place.
Bob, if you'll hold off, I'd rather you, if you don't mind, I'd rather you do that as testimony and...
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like a chance to answer here. I think I get what you're saying, Bob, and really what it sounds like is I've got a used car for sale, and if you don't buy it tonight, it'll change the price tomorrow. Let's just do it right away. I'm concerned that we're not having public input. You've been here for public input, Bob, but where's the general public that's in Belfair? Are they listening? Are they hearing about this issue? And I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about who is going to pay for the growth in Belfair. Under this plan, the county
Commissioner Sheldon?
is paying
Commissioner,
for the trunk lines.
Commissioner?
What about
I need
Belfair?
Commissioner, I need to ask you the same thing as I did Bob. Please wait until testimony to make testimony.
Well, I was asked a question.
I know, and I
Thank
stopped him on that, and I gave you an opportunity to go for a while, but if your testimony, please wait, and we'll handle testimony at the end also. With that being said, are there any other questions before we move into testimony? Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you very much, Frank.
Well, the question I have, Mr. Chairman, is why doesn't growth pay for growth? The plan assumes that we, the county, the taxpayers, are going to put in the trunk lines out to the far reaches of this massive urban growth area and reach all the existing houses. What about the developer that wants to develop a piece of property? He's just allowed to hook up to these taxpayer-funded trunk lines and sell lots.
Are you asking that question of me, Commissioner?
How does growth pay for growth in this plan?
Are you asking that question of me, Commissioner?
Well, of the commission, maybe both of you could weigh in on it. How does growth pay for growth in this plan?
Okay, well,
I'll be happy to at the discussion period.
okay, we'll handle that at the discussion period. All right, hearing anything more, is there any other questions? Then we'll move on to testimony. Is there anybody who would like to testify and give their opinion in regards to this issue at this time from the audience? Please.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tom Davis again. This is not a political issue. This is an economic issue, and it would be in our best interest to keep this on an economic discussion basis. This is taking a very bad plan and making it as acceptable as possible in terms of funding for that original plan. So this is not the best plan in the world. We don't know what the best plan in the world is that's available to us, but it's a pretty good plan. In this plan, and it's simplified to be sure, are the answers to all the questions being asked. If you look at this, the plan, and you read it from cover to cover, and it's 4 pages in the spreadsheet, you will understand what we're trying to do here, what we're asking the auditor to do here. And the purpose of this agenda item is to put this information in front of the auditor and get their expert advice on whether or not this is a good plan, it's a feasible plan, it's a workable plan in the long term, it's a sustainable plan. That's what they're going to do. That's one of the reasons we got the finding, is we didn't have a plan. This is a plan. So we bring this to the auditor will, I assume they won't just check off on it and say, oh, you know, this is brilliant. They might, you know, I would assume they're going to have some suggestions. But the point is that all the information is here. Now, if you're going to get into a theoretical discussion, as I see this conversation going, we're going to have a very, very long meeting. This is a plan that I think is very innovative. I think it's also the only plan on the table. There's no other viable plan that I've seen, that I've heard coming from the commissioners, coming from the budget manager, coming from anywhere. This is what we have. So if this is the only one on the table, and the clock is ticking because there is 2 findings that need to be addressed, then maybe we need to pursue this. And maybe we need to bring it up to the next level. I support the fact that this is the first step in a lengthy plan. And originally, when we were going to bond this debt out about 18 months ago, we were looking at $14 million, and we would have been delighted to get 2.5%. Here we're looking at a much lesser amount at a much lesser interest rate. In an instrument that I didn't even know existed. I didn't even know it was a possibility until then. So I applaud that. I applaud that this is on the table. I would wait now to see what the auditor says before we carry on into the discussion, simply because they have the expertise, and I think that's what we need to do, is put the information before them, get the feedback, see if there's going to be adjustments made, and then move down the process. But to not give this to the auditor at this time would be foolish, because it's the only thing we have in the future to pay back this enormous debt. And we are growing our way out of this. That's the purpose of this. That's what this plan addresses, because it wasn't this commission that stopped everything dead. This is a plan that a debt that we must grow our way out of. And this plan addresses that debt so we can do so. So on this face value, it's worthy. Whether it's completely workable, let's wait and see what the auditor says. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other citizens wish to comment at this time? Bob Harris, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Bob Harris. I live off the North Shore Road in Belfair, and I have property in the Belfair UGA. I'm a ratepayer. Growth will pay for growth. I believe that's exactly what this plan will do. Nobody in Belfair is asking for a handout. We don't want a county handout. We're willing to pay our own way. This plan actually stabilizes the Belfair sewer system, and it does encourage development. There is development there waiting to happen, but you can't expect them to throw any money on the ground unless they know how much they're going to be throwing out there. They want to know what the sewage rates are going to be. They want to make sure that they're not going to escalate a lot in the very near future. That's just common sense. Our water rates are stabilized, so we've got water stabilized. We need to stabilize sewer. This plan enables the Belfair UGA ratepayers to pay their own way. We're going to pay our own way out because we're going to get development. It helps to get the taxpayers, the Mason County taxpayers, off the hook. Simply stated, we can build our own way out of this. It's as simple as that. We have a very expensive sewer system that is just enabling itself to run right now because it's got minimum input. It's an expensive system that needs to be put to work. As Tom mentioned, this is a very conservative plan. It's not spending millions and millions of dollars on infrastructure. It's a very simple, low-pressure, low-cost system that will enable developers, homeowners, and anyone who wants to come into developer to develop. I think it's very important that we don't wait around for a disaster. I live there, I know what's going on. If we fiddle around, Belfair's liable to burn. And what happens in Belfair may have a lot to do with what happens in Mason County. It would be nice to see all three commissioners working together to resolve this problem. The plan being presented is quite unique, but it's the only one we've got, and it will work if we can get the cooperation of everyone in Mason County. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else, any other citizens wish to testify at this time? Steve Bloomfield.
If I can get up. Yes, Steve Bloomfield. A concern I have is and I have had for a while, is the continued use of .09 money for funding this. I think it's a tortured interpretation of usage to some degree. Commercial development, absolutely, that's what it's for. When it comes to the existing housing areas and whatnot, I do not believe that that's within the intent of the law. And it should be approached with caution and making sure that those .09 funds are directed in the proper manner to get to where they should be used and not into existing housing areas. That can be achieved, and fully supportive of that. I'm in support of sending this plan off, a plan. We need to do that. We can't flaunt the auditor's recommendation or demand. Let's get on with life there. And this problems existed prior to any of the commissioners that are sitting here now, prior to Tim. We blew it years ago, and we're having a hard time making that up now. Let's get on with life and look to the future and forget about that past. And let's send this plan on. But caution's a watchword with that .09 money.
Just to address that for a half a second, though, as you know, though, it's already been proven for the most part that it is used for that. We use it currently now for the Shelton sewer system, and this is a current use that's already been there for the '09. But the beauty of this whole thing is the one who will make that determination is the auditor. And so we'll send it to the auditor. If the auditor finds that it does not meet that interpretation, we'll hear about it, and that's why we're sending everything to the auditor now.
And I think, and Senator Sheldon, I'll call him Senator today because he's in Olympia, Commissioner Senator Sheldon is fully aware that rural economic development is not very well supported within the urban cities. And unfortunately, they are the driving force of the state. And all we have to do is get crosswise with them in some level, and we would lose it completely. And to do that would be a disaster at this stage.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to testify at this time? Hearing none, we will close the testimony and move into commissioner deliberations. Actually, we're not in a hearing, so it sure feels like one today, though. Okay, Commissioner, now is your time, if you'd like to go ahead and speak your piece.
Mr. Chairman, just to mention one thing that was maybe a correction here, that the money that the .09 funds are used for with the Shelton sewer system is not for the operation of the system. It was for the extension of the line out to Johns Prairie.
Yep.
And that was part of the bond that we have to, and part of the '09 monies are used for that. And it's been going on for, I want to say, eight or 9 years, something like that. I think it's a 20-year bond.
It's not a bond, but it's a 20-year,
Loan, I think.
not a loan either, it's a 20-year payment.
But it doesn't go for operations. Yeah. It was for the construction of that line so that we could have more economic growth in the urban growth area.
Yes. Any other testimony, Commissioner?
Well, I've got a couple other things I'd like to say, but
Well, now,
I'll make sure
now's your time.
you can hear me. Okay. I haven't seen any engineering for the phase 2. Now, I've asked that at about 2 or 3 different meetings. I'd like to see some preliminary engineering of what this low pressure, unquote, system is going to do and how it will work. I think that the $1.5 million in the capital budget, in the Senate capital budget, which has been voted on by the 49 members here, hopefully stays in the budget that is under deliberation right now and then is signed by the governor. So that's $1.5 million. There's a mention of that in this plan, but nothing for how that money would be used for rate relief and how it would change the numbers that are on that spreadsheet. So I'm interested in that. I'm also optimistic that the state could also make more appropriations in subsequent budget years as well, because this is a system which does improve the health of Hood Canal, the shellfish growing areas. That's a big thing. And when the sewer system was planned, the governor, Norm Dix, Congress, everyone was very excited about the benefits that it would bring to water quality. So I think the state has a continuing obligation to help Belfair with its small population base, the UGA. As you mentioned, there's less than 1,000 people in that UGA that to bear the brunt of this, because it's a body of water of statewide significance. Only 2 bodies of water in this state are classified that way, the Hood Canal and I believe Lake Chelan. So I'm real concerned about jumping on a plan that we may change very quickly. I think that should be in part of it, that the appropriation is still waiting on the governor's signature, the full vote of the legislature and the governor's signature. And I'm concerned that we haven't had any public input on this. Now, at the last meeting we had in Belfair a couple weeks ago on the 5th Tuesday, it was mentioned, I believe, that we should have some public input from the citizens that will ultimately pay these bills. And I'm concerned that we're jumping on a bandwagon of building right now into these second phases and third phases when the population base is very, very low. So I'm just concerned that we don't have enough information to present a plan yet to the auditor. And I'd like to delay that for a while we get more information on this $1.5 million and listen to the public and see what their input is. We've had the input, I think, from many of the developer community in Belfair, but I'd like to hear from people that live in existing developments how they would feel about an extension of the sewer to their property and how much it will cost them individually, not only to hook up but to decommission their present systems. There's also talk, and I don't think it was in the plan, of extending to Beards Cove and some of the areas that are limited areas of more input, open houses. I think it's important that the public is in sync with what the commission is doing here. Thank you.
Commissioner Jeffries?
Thank you. So Dwight Eisenhower once said that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And I like that approach, thinking about the fact that we are going to go on an annual review process of how this plan is performing. Each year won't tell us exactly whether we're getting the type of growth we'd like. There's a trend data, but I think we need to keep in context that this plan has built-in flexibility. I want to thank Commissioner Netherland and the Belfair Sewer Advisory Committee and Frank Pintner for the hours and hours and hours of work you've put on this. It's true that we need to have a plan to the auditor to have the finding lifted, number one. And number two, we need to at least have some sort of plan to go forward. Commissioner Sheldon, I appreciate your concern about not having public input, but I think it does no use for us to do that if it's not something that can be approved. I think our number one priority is get the finding lifted, make sure that we've got the plan in place that would at least get us in the right, on the right track with them, and then go to the public and see if there's places that can be tweaked within some of the auditor's comments and findings. The key components I like about this plan is it does acknowledge the reality that we have to grow out of the problem, and that it prioritizes expansion of the system that will incentivize that growth that we need, that will lift that moratorium, our de facto moratorium, and I do like the flexibility of the plan. I believe growth does pay for itself. I think that governmental entities' responsibility is to incentivize that growth. We have very few incentives, and one of the most important ones we have, especially as a county government, is to put the infrastructure in place. Once that's in place, then you've got the building and the construction and the growth that is going to go feed back into the monies that are going to feed back into this, such as .09 and REIT 2 monies. Not to mention the expansion of the property tax base. I think that this community has suffered for a long time because of this belief that we have to ask the developer to put every piece of infrastructure in, and as a result we've seen nothing happen in the city of Shelton, and we're in danger of seeing nothing happen in Belfair. We've got to play our part in this, and I think the trunk lines are a pretty darn simple way of doing that. One of the concerns I do have is that maybe we're over-assuming, and a pretty heavy assumption, that the Department of Ecology will have some grant monies for us. I have a big fear about that, but we'll cross that bridge and get down there and start talking to them. And Commissioner Sheldon, we're going to need your help down there, as well as all our other legislators in the 35th District. And I'm concerned that our assumptions of the cost of expansion of the system are a little bit underassumed, that they're going to go higher, because as we found, most construction projects cost a lot more than you think they are going to. And then finally, I believe I have spent probably 5 or 6 years studying the use of the .09 and the REIT 2 monies in another career. I think this is exactly what this money's for. Yes, there will be existing development that will benefit from it, but that'll be the side advantage. .09 monies are exactly for incentivizing growth. And you can't do that better than running a sewer line in an undeveloped area that is zoned for commercial development, zoned for industrial development, and zoned for housing development. Not to mention, you need housetops for commercial development. Every retailer will start counting rooftops and median income to see if this is where they're going to put their store. And unless we get the housetops in there, the rooftops in there, we're not going to see the kind of development we need to sustain not only the system, but the long-term future of Mason County's tax base and our services, our public safety, our criminal justice, and all the other services. We need to build our tax base, and we need to be on a trajectory of growth that is naturally occurring by the developers, because, first of all, we're stuck on our property tax of not being able to increase over 1% per year, which doesn't even cover inflation, let alone our labor costs. go off track. If, I'm very much in favor of putting this forward and voting yes and put this forward to the auditors, see what, let them pick this apart, let them tell us where we need to tweak it, and then come back, readjust, and go to the public up there in the Belfair community and ask them, what do you think? I guarantee you we're going to hear a lot of, I don't want to pay us sewer bills, but guess what? That ship left the part a long time ago.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sheldon, I wish you were here today so I could look you eye to eye when I'm going to say what I'm about to say. You know, as we sit here and have some of the discussions and the things that you're saying, it's very interesting to me that you try to put it on this commission and that we haven't talked to the committee. We're not. Where were you when you passed the regulations and the code saying that these people had to be hooked up? When you forced hookup for the whole UGA? That's not us. You did that. Or how about when they were required to be hooked up by 2017, that now that we have to do this, whether we want to or not?
I'll have to respond to you.
Yeah, I'll give you time. Let me do my thing first, and then you can kick my butt, okay?
Mr. Chairman, the Growth Management Hearings Board forced that upon us.
No, and again, I'll disagree with you on that completely too. But on top of that, there's a lot more to it than that. Because where were you when we had a plan set up to even do that, and your community was begging you to be careful on how you did it at 22 to 24 million, and then you bring in another company, CH2M Hill, to take it over, and then it goes to 50 million and only hooks up the small trunk. You know, these are things that you had decided. Accepted grants that said we were going to have it built by 2017, and you accepted grants and went after grants saying that we're going to get 1,800 sewer septic systems when we only have 963 people in the UGA. You know, we have to account for those things, and that's why the moratorium, that's why it's all been closed off. And as we're talking about the plan on whether or not to sit on it any longer, Commissioner, for 3 years before we got our first finding, the auditor said to you, you have a broken plan. It told you that this county was in trouble, and you didn't listen to him then you got a finding, and we still didn't listen in time, so we got a second finding. This is the opportunity to get us out of the trouble that you created, sir. So please don't blame this commission as we're trying to clean up your mess. Now you can go ahead and kick my butt.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not interested in running you down. I'm not interested in putting blame on others. I'm interested in solving a long-term problem that we have here. And this urban growth area is extremely large, extremely large. That's what the public wanted when it was put together. Everybody, big landowners wanted to be in. We looked for money. I found $15 million initially in 2005. Now another $1.5 million. I think there is, as I said before, I think there is other state money that could be obtained because of the water quality improvements that are made because of a sewer system. And you and I know that you dig 1 or 2 feet down in Belfair, you're going to find water. So we have an issue with that. A community that was built on a very, very high water table. But I just believe that it's time to look for some solutions that we all can buy in on. And I've raised this point before, Mr. Chairman. To be a leader, I think you have to be paying the bill just like everyone else. And I'm upset that we have this special clause in here, basically, that incentives are available, but not available to the 4 people that haven't hooked up, 4 entities that haven't hooked up. It's time that you hook up, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to say that right out. I think it's time that you hook up in order to lead on this issue, which you want to do. So that's all I have to say right now.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. Let me just clarify. I agree with you, Commissioner. I would love to hook up, and as soon as I'm not needed to protect my community for the damage you did in the first place, I'm more than happy to, and I intend to as soon as we get an actual plan in place. I don't even need to wait for a code or anything else. And I don't know if you know this, but all the things when originally the commission accused me of lying when I brought forward saying you guys hooked up into my property and took my property and that of my neighbors by 15 feet or so. It has been proven now, we have a letter from the county, they had a survey and they found that it was done 3 times on my property, not once, 3 times, 17 feet deep. So, you know, sitting there and protesting, actions done, you know, I would never begrudge anybody that. I definitely would never begrudge you, the ability to protest and protect your property and your community. But I do intend to hook up, and I'm hoping I can as soon as possible. I'm not a fool. I could have hooked up at $3,000, and now it's gonna cost me $10,000. How does that sound like I'm taking advantage of my county?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna have to go out on the floor and vote here on a bill, so if
Okay,
you vote on this, I'd appreciate it.
Okay,
Mr.
we'll
Chair-
take the motion. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, I'd move that we send, and I'm going to alter this motion on the agenda. I'm going to send the draft Belfair Sewer financial plan to the State Auditor's Office for review.
Is there a second? I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded for approval to send forward this draft plan to the state auditor for review, and hopefully their approval. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye? Opposed?
Yes, no.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I've gotta go out on the floor.
Okay.